once again. It is good day to you, huh? It's like double your pleasure, huh? And we'll triple it later on, huh? So here we are in Mount Shasta, the shadow of the mountain. How many of you have seen the heart on the mountain? Yes, it is very big. Understand and know that you are here by divine appointment. The mountain called you here. The Lemurians called you here. The Telos called you here. So you can receive whatever it is in your highest good to receive. And for those that are listening to this sometime in the future, well, obviously the mountain will call you here at some point in time. You see, that is how it works. You get a divine appointment. The universe sort of taps you on the shoulder. And if that is for us, can you take a message? Tell them they are light. When we arrived here on this planet many years ago, we saw this little round woman. And we said, she can hold the vibration. Because she believes that it's possible to be all that you are. And now you do too. And with that energy of being all that you are, we ask you to be that love. And anything that separates you from that love, stop it. It is as simple as that. We know there's all kinds of stories. Oh, but I can't stop it because I'm married to it. Oh, but I can't stop it because of my family, my friends, my blah, 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 my same story over and over and over. Who's in charge of that story? Not us. You. Someone said you. Oh, yeah. You are. But you see, you can't say, well, I can't leave my husband, I can't leave my wife, I can't leave my family. I love my family. We're not asking you to do that. We're asking you to simply be you. And when you are you, when you are the love that you are, and if judgment comes your way, you just say, you know, I love them so much. They know not what they do. But I know that there's space for change there. And you just hold the space for change. Don't think you can convince anybody of anything. We want you to try to convince some of your family about the Lemurians that are living inside these mountains. They will see the pictures and they will say, you know, oh, that's just a thing in the camera. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when you are consistently you, and when you are trusting you, when you are trusting that energy, when you are trusting that focus, when you are trusting that vibration, and know beyond a shadow of doubt, this is who you are. It will shift into love too. Because love is all you need. Love magnifies the energy of everything, yes? It's like a quartz crystal. It magnifies that which it touches. So you see, that is the key. It's just to be that love. Just to be that love. And don't argue with those things that don't appear to be love, because ultimately they are still love as well. You understand what we say? All beings on this planet, with 2 legs, 4 legs, or no legs, are love. Are love. They're all searching for that. They're all looking to set their boundaries with that. They're all acknowledging that. They're all trying their best. Even though sometimes they sabotage themselves into crazy things. They are learning just as you are learning. Are you done yet? No. You still have a body. That means you're still learning. And even when you don't have a body, we believe you still learn because you're going to come back and maybe get another body. When you turn in your purchase order for the body, the vessel Marilyn says, we want to be taller. But you see, she is still perfect just as she is, just as you are. For that perfection, that divine perfection is you. The divine perfection of this planet is you. Maybe this galaxy, maybe others, we do not know. From where we are from, we have a different perspective of you. You are the teachers. Because you learned how to hold on to that love. Others will look for that. And you can teach them as well. And you know how you do that? How do you teach love? You can't even define love, hardly. So how can you possibly teach it? All you need to do is be. Be. And as you are being, the world shifts its consciousness. So Maryland's Assembly of God, no, Jehovah's Witness family. It's stricter than the Assemblies of God. Her Jehovah's Witness family, when she went to spend a week with them. Can you imagine? Those conversations. We were right there with her and she did fine. Then they watched the show that Lee presented. They thought, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. And they loved her even more. And they gave her a book on healing that she can use in her practice, even though that is not their belief. You see, if you believe they cannot change, you are right. If you believe change is possible, you are right. So which is it? Change is possible. The world is changing every moment, every day. Every vibration of you, every time you take a deep breath and breathe out. Some scientist somewhere said that they feel it in India. We don't know how that happens, but it's possible. Because everything is. You understand that you are the way showers of the planet. So if you return to your home and someone says, well, what did you do in your Shasta retreat about Pleiadians? Well, it was about pleading for your life, huh? When you try to make up some other word about Pleiadians. You see, even the title of the conference will not allow you to be two people in the same body. Huh? It will not allow you to be out of integrity. You must bring your soul in integrity. You must. And those things that are working to shift you, those turning points, say yes to the bigger picture. Because the bigger picture is you. You are the divinity. You are the ones, right here, right now. And you think, how can I go back to my home after all of this, and I've been with the Pleiadians, and I've been in a room full of Pleiadians, I've been in a room full of channels, I've been in a room full of Lemurians, and I don't even know what they look like. I've been in a room full of the Telos, and they're little people, and they come from the inside of a mountain. How am I going to be a difference in my home? Take a deep breath. You just be. You just be the divine wisdom that you are. When you ask on an internal level, give me the words to explain what I need to explain, and the sense to know what I don't need to explain, it will be true. And that is all there is. You carry that energy in the cells of your body, in the cells of your energy field. You carry that wisdom. You know, someone said that they're having a Lemurian wisdom retreat. How fun is that? To bring that wisdom up to the surface. So do it. Someone says that they're going to Thailand to receive that wisdom from the ancients, the elephants, the whales, the dolphins. Do it. Did you know that every dollar you invest in yourself comes back to you 10,000-fold? You have to be smart. Don't use your American Express card. I'm just kidding. You can use that card. But you understand that you are investing in yourself right now. And that investment will come back to you 10,000-fold. Because you are the love that you are. That energy comes back to you. Everything that you put out in your field comes back to you. So if you don't necessarily like what is coming back to you, look at what you're putting out. Huh? We know you know that one. But that is what these are for, to help you practice it. Huh? Bracelets. You understand, dearest beings of light, dearly beloveds, I am in love with you. Your courage, your strength, and even your fears. I was a bit nervous sometimes in my life here. You can understand that. And yet here you are. Many of you, if not all, were on the planet at the time I was here. Yes, you signed up for it again, didn't you? And yet I return in your heart. I will be there with you to help you with your courage, to help you with your judgment, to help you with whatever you ask. is what that book said, yeah. Ask, and the door will be opened. I actually did say that. Lots there I didn't. But that I did. Because I love you. Just exactly as you are. You need change nothing. Just be more you. Be you. That is it. For you are enough. You are more than enough. You are all things. You are all you choose. I choose with you to say yes. I did. There's that question, where would we all be if I would have said, not now. Not today. We won't ever know that. So what will the world not know by you saying no to you? I know. I sound like Adirondha, don't I? For you see, you are the step. You are evolution. Through you, with you, peace is possible. You know, all of the planet won't always agree on anything, except maybe peace. Peace. That is true. I am in love with you. Always. I trust you to do your part. Now, trust yourself. Love is in your cells. The wisdom is in your cells. That you can do greater than I. Know that. Know that. Namaste.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. There are some who say, what really is channeling? How does it work within the human? And we've said at this point that it is a stream of intuition. So in order to channel, the teaching is this: you learn to recognize intuition and begin to allow it in a better way to form things that make sense to you. That's channeling. This particular channel, my partner says right now to me, you must title it. that is not something that we would normally do with intuition. But we will. You might say, well, it's good to have a title and a subject on all of these messages so that we can have an idea of what it's about. Are you aware that you title every intuitive thought that comes to you? Right now, the title was and is and will remain, what was that? That's your title. That's what I want to do with this. What was that? But I'm going to title it anyway, and I'm going to call it The Puzzle. It's a grand story, and it's a story of human consciousness and the way you think and the way you act and what really has occurred. It's so interesting, is it not, when you take a look at humanity and what they believe, that even today, right now, there is a consensus. The consensus is among those who would take these kinds of consensuses that humanity in general believes in the afterlife. Statistically, they say over 80% of the billions that are here and who arrive and leave daily believe in the afterlife. And this, dear ones, is intrinsic. This is innate. This is what you come in with. And so therefore, there is the seed already of the belief that there's more. This then would then give you questions about what is there that would create that, perhaps a soul. And that is the consensus as well. Almost universally on this planet, throughout all of the belief systems, there is that which is a vehicle that you ride in, you're here for a while, and you move on. So that's the premise immediately. But what is interesting at this point in time is that you have free choice at every moment to examine that, to look into it, to ask the questions. Eventually you do. You would think that free choice would be a very positive idea. I have free choice, you'd say. I can go anywhere I wish. I can choose whatever vibration I wish on the planet. I'm not forced into any belief. I can go and do what I wish with my own consciousness. In my own private time, I know what I want to believe. I have free choice. It sounds so positive, and yet, dear ones, it becomes instead a frustration, a puzzle. And the reason is because you sit, dear ones, in a low consciousness where that which you don't understand is beyond the veil. And so when you get to be an adult, there is a puzzle. Now, in a low consciousness state, the puzzle truly has been solved by so many. But I'm not there yet. When you are born into this planet, and as a child, you have many opportunities to watch the puzzle. You don't ponder these things as you grow. Not really. You may hear about them and have words about them. You maybe even talk songs about them. But you don't ponder them with an intellect until you come of age. Past 6 or 7 years old, you have a model that is not necessarily spiritual, but it's a model of something similar. And in this culture, we're going to call it Santa Claus. Santa Claus, all-knowing, all-seeing, knows you, knows your name, knows where you live, and knows if you're good or bad. I'm right. This is the model of Santa Claus. And depending upon what you do as a child, you're told that there will be presents or no presents. So already there is the setup. An invisible force that knows who you are, is looking at you, and is ready to judge. Good or bad, gifts or not. The premise is there, and the child believes it. All along, in this illusion, behind the illusion, there often is a set of loving parents who back it up. They are not the illusion. Quite often, they are the ones that supply the gifts regardless. They are the ones who continue the illusion because it's fun and because there can be surprises and a lot of love. That's the Santa Claus premise. When you're about 7 or 8, perhaps before a little after the truth is revealed, you're old enough to know. And eventually it's okay and you realize that it's deception, and you will then use it on your children as well. But then some interesting things take place. These years between 7, perhaps, and even 10 or 11, depending upon the child and the gender, are interesting because this is where you solidify the puzzle. I'll tell you what happens. You're not yet in that place where you are pondering, for instance, life or creation, but you get to see what your parents have done with the puzzle. And so many on this planet are then taken to worship services of so many denominations and so many kinds. And in there you get to watch what your parents believe. And it's amazing. First of all, you see all grown-ups. You see some of them in costume. You see some of them in worship positions. You see some of them praying and crying, perhaps. You see some of them authoritative, perhaps, and speaking in another language, perhaps, of ancientness, of scripture, doctrine, instructions. You see them all performing this in a huge building. That's important. Who builds these buildings? The answer is, as a child, someone very important. They must cost a fortune. You're told that some of the buildings are 100 years old. And then you start to understand and cognize and realize this must be real. The adults believe it. Look, they dress for the occasion. Look, they're in costume for the occasion. It's real. And at that point in time, dear ones, even though as a child you don't cognize or ask the questions, you're indelibly stamped with what your adults believe. Sometimes without thinking, you then become them. Sometimes without thinking, you will come and go and come and go. You've solved the puzzle. This is who the Creator is to you. It's so interesting, is it not, that the Creator, right now, in this consciousness, on this planet, with billions and billions believing in the God and the creation, but that creation consciousness is as follows. There's an invisible force. Call it what you want. God, Spirit, Creator. There's an invisible force who knows you and knows your name and knows when you're bad or if you're good. And you better watch out. Because when you leave this planet to that afterlife that you believe in, there's going to be reward or punishment. Does this sound familiar? That is where the consciousness of the planet is right now. How many would take a look at all this and ask the questions, is this correct, is this not correct? Am I simply repeating something I learned as a child? Ask Cryon, I am honoring of humanity, of their systems, of what they've done as far as they've gone. I am honoring of crossing through that 2012 veil that you might not have gone through You weren't scheduled to go through. It was going to be the end of everything. Dear ones, you know this. The man who sits in the chair went through the Cold War. Many of you did not. He saw 50,000 nuclear weapons pointed at two countries. The man in the chair heard from his dying father on his deathbed that his father was sorry he brought him in at this point in time, at this point in history, because he wasn't going to survive. Because almost everyone, when polled, said there's impossible odds that you're not going to do it again. That's a double negative. You're going to do it again. It's going to be called World War III, and it's going to be short. And you know I'm right. Humanity has warred in all of these eons, of these ages, in a low consciousness, and one war leads to another. And there seems to be no Akashic remembrance, no innate instructions. There doesn't seem to be instinct from one generation to another that says, don't do that, it doesn't work, it's dysfunctional. That's called low consciousness. Generation after generation will grow up and do it again. Now here's what you know, but perhaps you not have heard this before. Most of the wars of the death in the history of humanity have been caused by those warring in belief systems of God. So much of the horror that has been presented from one society to another is because the one society is not believing like the other society is believing. And they must be killed because of it. And some of the most precious of your belief systems and loving of your belief systems are guilty. Because of the low consciousness of what they've gone through and what they've done, from the Spanish Inquisition with Christians, right down to those today who are radical, who will cut the heads off of Christians. Do you see that it has not changed? But something happened, dear ones, in 2012 that started to open a door of the allowance of seeing the puzzle again, differently. Right now there is a light being turned on. And for the first time, humans individually are starting to ask questions about the puzzle. Up to now, I'm going to tell you in honor, not in criticism, but in honor of everything that you were able to do in a low energy that I just described. Honestly, almost everything you have done regarding the knowledge, the organizations, the doctrines, everything that you have done regarding God has been the children's version. It's the Santa Claus version. It's not a criticism. It's a fact. And it's a fact because of a low consciousness that is now starting to shift. And the result of it isn't just in spiritual puzzle solving. Already you're starting to see the increase in the desire for integrity in all things. This comes mainly from the first world at this point. The one that's allowed to think and say and write and show. And many are not on this planet. This will start a revolution in puzzle solving. What do we do with the old energy? Why is this here? How do we eradicate this? How can we be more transparent? How can we change politics? How can we change corporate? How can we change drugs? How can we change? Because suddenly it all looks dysfunctional. That is evolution. But the biggest one, the puzzle, starts to show itself again. One by one, individual human beings, without even being prompted, without any evangelical evangelical thrust, without a new prophet, without a new system, without anything, are awakening to the puzzle. One by one, they're asking this question: could there be more than I was told? Could there be more than any of us knew? And the children's version starts to pass away. When you were told about Santa Claus, perhaps originally there was disappointment. When you learned there really was none, not really, there was disappointment. Those who start to ask the questions of whether their worship is correct or not, or whether God is really a judging God. How can God love you so much and then send your children to hell? How can any God torture a child who doesn't find out something in time? That's the doctrine of billions. And yet it's not seen as dysfunctional because of the low consciousness of thought. It's just the way it is. Sometimes officials of the church are being asked, why is that? How could that be? How could that happen? And they will point to the scripture and they will say,